the South San Francisco podcast. I'm your host and Assistant City Manager, Rich Lee. This is Season 2, Episode 2, and I am thrilled to have a very own celebrity of South San Francisco here, celebrity chef, Ava Marie. Ava Marie, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's my pleasure.
So I've invited Ava Marie to join me to share a number of things about her life journey, and love to hear all about it. But first, I want to hear your connection to South San Francisco. How long have you lived here, and perhaps about your family's journey here?
I lived in South San Francisco for almost 35 years. And my family lived in Trinidad, Colorado. My grandparents, from my dad, grandpa was in the war in the 1940s. Prior to that, my granddad he was born in 1954 with two sisters, Aunt Debbie and Aunt Laura. He was just surrounded by two bossy sisters. Yeah. And then he actually grew up with a very good household. He was very well educated dad. And then he actually got in trouble a lot, my dad. And he used to go out in the window, and my grandpa would catch him out in the window. And my dad shared his stories with me as a young dad. And he taught me, he was very overprotective ever since for his children, you know. But he became in student government at a young age. And he wanted to make sure he was very into politics. And he was into planning commission for 13 years.
Wow.
And he married my mom, a Michigan native, who was also an LA native too. And she also lived a very full waitress life, and she was a cook as well. And I learned to cook from my mom because my mom was very influential in food. And that's why I became a cook, because of my mother mostly, but my dad was in the philanthropy world. My dad taught me about philanthropy and being strong. And that's why I became they raised 6 children, including myself, the youngest of 6.
Wow. And
I have 1 sister and 4 brothers.
And you were the youngest?
Yes.
Okay. So you mentioned your dad. So your last name is Romero.
Yes.
And you mentioned your dad. And those that grew up in South San Francisco, or I'm sure they know your dad, but what was your dad's name?
William Martin Romero.
And he went by?
Marty.
Yes, Marty Romero, very well-known figure in South San Francisco.
Yes.
And, he kind of mentioned that he was that philanthropic side of you, right? That inspired you to be philanthropic. You mentioned your mom, who kind of inspired the chef, to feed other people.
Yes.
Was that something that you started as a young child, and she would show you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a particular favorite family recipe that she kind of handed down to you? Shortbread
cookies were one of my signature recipes. Mm-hmm. And she taught me how to make the lasagna shells. And that's some of the recipes I've been passing on for generations.
By hand? The lasagna shells by hand?
Yeah, these little roll-ups. And also, these are the few things I remembered by my mom.
So, thank you for the background on your family and kind of your connection to the South San Francisco community. You'd mentioned kind of in the promotion for this that you were on a culinary journey. And I will say for myself, finding what my purpose and meaning was in life, I don't know that I found that out until about 10 years ago. For you, you've known, this was your calling for a while. Yeah. Can you kind of tell me how you arrived at, this is what I want to do in my life?
Yes. This is what I want to do. When I was 13 years old, I wanted to do this as my hobby, and then it became serious at 21. I became a competitive cook at age 21, and I won my first ribbon at the San Mateo County Fair, and I won Best in Show at the San Mateo for my enchilada casserole, my aunt's recipe, and it was history. But my friend Rebecca told me, how about you take your contest cooking to the next level? And I did. And I entered the recipe contest and went into the World Food Championship into dessert category. And I got the golden ticket to 2018 World Food Championship. And at the time, it was at the Orange Beach, Alabama. Then they went into Texas, and they had a 3-year contract there. And now they have have a 3-year contract in Indiana, which I'm gonna miss out this year. But next year I'm gonna be doing it in 2025 in Indiana. So I'm hoping to save money there.
Okay, so that is kind of, if I were to liken it to sports, let's say there's a young man or woman, a young child in South San Francisco, and they're playing basketball or football or baseball. Am I right in saying that that's the equivalent of them going to the World Series or the Super Bowl?
Yes.
Okay, so pretty serious competition in the culinary industry, and you were there in 2018 under the dessert category.
Yes.
And you want to go back in 2025 when it's in Indiana. Will it also be under the dessert category or something else?
It will be probably in a savory category, like vegetarian or spicy noodle. But it's have to win my way back.
Okay. So how do you get back there? Is it a qualification process?
It's a qualification process. I had to do it this year, but none of my recipes were accepted.
Okay. So what is kind of the cutoff? Like, you have to qualify by a certain date?
Yeah, it was online this year. It has to be by what the judges like, and they have to be impressed by my love of cooking. Okay. And I was the first autistic chef to ever be accepted at the World Food Championship. I hope they honor that again.
I hope so. So there is the World Food Championship, but there are other things that you're also pursuing as a part of your culinary journey. And you mentioned a couple times your friend Rebecca, who is also on a culinary journey of her own.
Yes.
And she was a contestant on a certain program that you would also like to compete on. What is that? MasterChef, which I believe is with the world famous Gordon Ramsay, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So how was the process for that? Have you submitted an application for that before?
I just applied for the duos just past month, and I did not accept it because Gavin and I applied together. Mm-hmm. It was for nephew and auntie season, and then they just are filming right now.
Okay.
So but I am gonna maybe consider Crime Scene Kitchen with my brother, with Joel McHale. So I might look into that.
Okay, and what TV channel is that on?
Also on Fox.
Also on Fox. Okay. Can you talk about? So you kind of mentioned how your parents were guiding you in either in philanthropy or in cooking. Are there other celebrity chefs that you kind of look up to, that you want to emulate and aspire to be like?
Rachel Ray is one of them because Rachel Ray is number one. She was a philanthropist for animals and children, not necessarily special needs, and also Guy Fieri he loves the Down syndrome community. I actually met him on the set of Guy's Grocery Games in real life. He was such a cool guy. He actually has a chihuahua named Smokey. And he was such a gentle man. He was with his mom that day.
And I've heard of other philanthropic work that he's done, especially when there's been natural disasters.
Yes.
Always been first to step up and try to help where he can.
And he does a lot for the chefs, the professionals, yes.
So there are a couple of things that we have in common. One is which you are the youngest child in your family. It's the same for me. So I completely understand about having older siblings. But we also share something else in common, which is you are also the host of your very own podcast.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I am the host of the Chef Ava Marie Happy Hour podcast, which is a weekly show that hosts celebrities, food influencers, politicians, and people in between to come over to either cook a meal, talk about their experience. It's a variety show that it's like a late night talk show on the air on YouTube that could be that could just be enjoyable. It's like think about Jimmy Fallon or think about Conan O'Brien. This show is for them in the Bay Area, and it's food centric.
So, other than YouTube, are there other places that I can find?
It's not on Spotify.
Okay.
But it's on YouTube only for right now.
Okay. And so, tell me about, you're pursuing your culinary journey through trying to get back to the World Food Championship. You've submitted applications for Master Chef. Like, what is your moonshot? Something that you dream, like, this is what I want to reach someday. What is that with your culinary journey?
Well, what I want to do, what's next for Chef Ava Marie?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I actually want to start a cottage foods baking business. I'm in negotiations with the Renaissance with the help of my brother Billy and Frankie. That's in development right now.
All right. So you've mentioned Renaissance, which is that's a partner of the city's, which
Yes.
they reside at our Economic Advancement Center down at Grand Avenue. So they are helping out members of the community, just like yourself,
Yes.
trying to go into business for themselves. So I definitely want to give them a shout out on the good work that they're doing. Tell me about, you mentioned earlier that you wanted to have a show of your own one day. Tell me a little bit more about that. What are you envisioning?
Well, my cooking show I would love KQED to have a cooking show. I would love to do like a 10-episode series based in the Bay Area to basically to film people in San Mateo, Santa Clara, to raid their pantries and teach them how to cook without fear. And I want to make sure get their people's pantries, like talk about food waste, because a lot of people have different stuffed pantries for Costco. So my goal is to educate them how to use their pantries, come up with different recipes in different ways. And that's why this show needs to be educated.
All right. I'm going to ask you a tough question. You can't choose both. You have to choose one. If you have a preference when you're cooking, actually a couple questions: natural gas or induction?
Induction.
Okay, and why induction?
Because it's better for the environment. Because I just went to a conference with my friend Chef Raina yesterday, and she talked about how induction is better for the environment and it's better for the earth. And she talked about it at the event down on first floor, and it was with a group of audience, and it was a great event, and I happened to be honored to go to that event yesterday.
I've met Chef Raina. I've been to her restaurant in Brisbane. It's absolutely delicious. So shout out to Chef Raina.
Yes, and she's a vegan cook.
Yes. Okay, that was the first polling question. Second polling question is, when you're cooking, do you use cast iron or do you use stainless steel or something else?
I use stainless steel.
Okay.
I don't use cast iron as much. No.
And even within that, I know there's kind of a preference with some chefs where it's stainless steel
I use steel too.
Yeah, or nonstick. Do you use nonstick or is
yes.
that okay? So one thing that we haven't talked about yet is you are also an author. Tell me a little bit more about the book that you've written.
Well, I've written a memoir based on my culinary journey, and it's basically about writing stories about my 35 years from high school and also from my elementary days. And it talks about where I come from, and it has my dad's legacy, my mom, and all the stories in the neighborhood. And it talks about the notable people in the community. So this is about my journey and right here.
And where could I find that book?
On Amazon, and I actually gave Mayor Coleman a copy. He actually has it at his house with his mom.
Amazing. Just a couple more questions that I have. One is, you spent 35 years here in South San Francisco. What is one or a few of your favorite memories here about the city?
Well, the day at the park was one of my fondest memories. When I got older, I used to go to the festival, visit the people. The fire truck was memorable. But I got punished. I got banned for going when I was younger because my dad told me, you got punished, you were a bad girl.
Oh, no.
Yeah, as a kid, when he was doing his pun commission work. So I got banned for a few years.
But you came back.
I came back, yes.
Okay. Hopefully your punishment was over after a few years.
Yeah, I would behave, yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you want to share with the South San Francisco community and the world at large?
Oh, yeah. I want to share that there is an offer talk at the City of South San Francisco Library. They're going to have, November, they're going to have a Native American Heritage Month is coming. And they're going to I'm Native American descent.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have a cookbook offer coming next month in November. So check that one out.
Okay, and you mentioned Native American. Is there a specific tribe or tribes that you are?
I am from Puebla.
Okay, and what are the origins of that tribe? Are they specifically from this area, or was there migration from another?
It was a migration from the Trinidad.
Trinidad, okay. And how did you, was that something that you knew young, or you found out later?
I found it later.
Okay, and did your mom or dad do some genealogy work to figure that out?
Oh, my grandma talked about it. My grandma Viola.
Okay. And when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that you do have family support, and you mentioned brothers and sisters.
Oh, yeah.
You want to give them a quick shout out?
Well, I want to say to Frank and Bill, you guys are rock stars, and you guys are amazing brothers. And if you guys are watching, we love you, and behave yourselves.
I really want to thank you for joining us today. And again, this is a great opportunity for us to promote and to celebrate our very own celebrity chef and author, Ava Marie Romero. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have a great day.
Thank you.